On Rob at Home.
We are talking about hope today, this entire 30 minutes on hope, and it is for you.
Hope is here, says Bishop Parnell Lovelace, the founder and senior pastor of Sacramento's popular Center of Praise. Rob at Home starts now.
And now, Rob on the road, exploring Northern California.
He is affectionately called the People's Bishop in Sacramento, and it is such a pleasure to have Bishop Parnell Lovelace Jr. join us here on Rob at Home. Bishop Lovelace, it is great to see you.
And it's great to see you, Rob. Always a joy to be in your presence, my friend.
Oh, I feel the same way about you. I really do. I consider you a friend, and I'm glad you are here. We are in a world today where I think that we are seeing a lot of need for hope. Tell me, first of all, how do you keep hope alive, and what exactly is hope?
Yeah. Well, let me start with this. Let me start with the latter part of that. What is hope? Rob, hope is more than what often we have labeled it to be. Often we think of hope as being wishful thinking, and we even state it as though, I hope this will happen. I don't know if it'll happen, but I hope it will. But hope is so much deeper. Hope is confidence. It is assurance. It is the belief that somehow, some way, things will change. The circumstance will change. The situation will change. It will, and even if it doesn't change, it is possible that through hope that I will change within the midst of the circumstance, in the midst of the challenge or whatever we're facing. So hope is deeply rooted in a confidence and belief that everything, regardless of what's being faced, is going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. That there's going to be some illumination to what seems to be a dark situation. And so for me, in keeping hope alive within my own life, and again, being a leader in our community, being a pastor, it's important that I keep hope alive, first and foremost, in my own heart, in order to encourage others to have hope. And for me, it's the ability to constantly remind myself that this too shall pass, that this is not the end all, that there's something beyond this. What is it that I can learn? How can I grow? How can I be an encouragement to someone while I'm experiencing whatever I'm experiencing? And to me, that is hope. And again, it's a confidence, it's an assurance, it's a belief that even if the situation doesn't change, there's something deeper through my experience in it, that it changes me, that I'm better, not bitter, but better through it. And that's how I approach life. That's how I approach even working and sharing with the people that I do, that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train that's coming towards us.
Boy, that is wow. That's really a flip of the way of thinking for a lot of people, because sometimes hope is a blank canvas, right? It's like, well, I have hope for whatever. Hope things are going to go a certain way, or hope things are going to go the way you want them to go.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying that with hope, you should confidently know that it's going to be okay. And let's apply this to something. Say someone just received a devastating diagnosis, or someone has died, or lost a job, or with COVID, with how we've seen it run rampant, and the polarization politically and human heart to heart being separated with COVID and politics and racial injustice. How do you apply hope to all that? You've got 3,500 people sitting in your pews looking at you.
Yeah. Well,
how do you apply that?
Yeah, well, and here's a secret to that. Often when I think of hope at times, and often when we think of hope, we simply apply it to ourselves. We become very central to what we're going through, very focused on what we're going through. And the very concept of hope is not merely attached to myself and attached to what I am facing. Hope is attached to that which is observable, but often because of my own situation, my fears, my frustrations, could be an illness, could be a death, I become very self-focused. I look inwardly and I miss the observations of hope that present themselves around me. But the fact that I can look and say that somebody cares when I've lost a loved one, someone cares when I'm sick and going through disease or dis-ease within my own being, that there's someone that we care for one another. Or in the midst of what I'm facing, I look beyond what I'm facing and begin to share and care for others. That's the power of hope. That lets us know that regardless of what people might think and what we might feel and all that is going around us, all is not lost. There is within us the ability to have confidence and assurance that everything is, again, it may not always look all right, but it will be all right.
You know, I love that. And I think that it is so easy for people to focus on what is wrong.
Yeah.
And then that manifests itself.
That is right.
When we focus on what is right, we see more of the light.
Yes.
We see more of what is good about each other.
Yes.
I want to ask you, why does it seem to take a near-death experience for everyone to get rid of all the bull?
Oftentimes it takes tragedy, it takes pain, it takes hurt to awaken us of how fragile life is, how fragile we are. If, again, the pandemic has not taught us anything, it has taught us to be appreciative every day of the life that we have. We may not have all the things we want and all the things we think we ought to have, but to be able to take and have breath and to be able to see our family members and others in the community and just be together. I think that hopefully, and I use that word intentionally, hopefully, it moves us into a place that we become less selfish, less self-centered, and that we don't wait for trouble to come and challenges to come, but rather we begin to celebrate one another. Frankly, we don't celebrate one another. We don't celebrate life around us. We don't celebrate the simple things, whether it be children playing outside or if it's whatever the case might be, just celebrating life. That's hope. You know, being thankful, not complaining all of the time. Now, it doesn't have to be a sunshiny day for me to say it's a good day. The fact that I awakened this morning, and as the old folks used to say when I was growing up, clothed in my right mind, that's hope. That gives me an opportunity to know that it doesn't end with what I'm facing. It does not end with what I'm challenged with. That each step that I take is moving me closer to seeing an outcome that, again, does not have to be necessarily the healing of cancer or the fact that all of my loved ones will never die, or anything. As long as I live on earth, there will be things that I will face in life. But despite that, I wake up with a smile on my face with an assurance that each day I have an opportunity to move from selfishness to being able to care and reach over towards someone else and help them be better, help their day be better. I think I become a part of the narrative of hope for their life.
I just heard something so powerful in what you said about getting out of selfishness. And that is by getting out of self through service.
Yes.
Service will save you.
Yes.
It will save you from anything.
Yes.
Simple kindness
Yes.
to another human being. And it doesn't matter if it's a complete stranger.
Yeah.
There are people isolated and lonely today. And when we pile on all the things that have been seen in recent years, there are a lot of people who are walking around with PTSD.
Yeah.
Masses of people. When you hear that, I'd like to talk to you about your life. Yeah. And how have you been able to get through times like that in your life, and have you had them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Rob, you know, as I think through that, I am a great grandson of people who were enslaved in this nation. I am the grandson of sharecroppers. I am the son of parents, both parents who served in the armed forces, and a father who served in Vietnam and Korea and came back to a country that showed little appreciation for the service that he had on behalf of this country because they could not get past his skin color. Mm-hmm. I come from a family that has experienced all of the trauma of divorce. My parents, again, experiencing all that they did, and my mother having to raise 4 boys later to become young men all by herself. I've gone through all of that, and yet I've never sought to carry the role of the victim, but rather the victor. That, and I might say that this narrative of hope has always been presented before me, that I never saw myself stopping. Trauma causes us to stop. It causes us to become paralyzed. It brings about fear. Trauma in itself is not the best motivator. But in the midst of the trauma, the application that this is not my stopping place, this is not where I need settle, that there is, again, something that is set before me, that if I can endure what I've endured, that if I'm still here and I'm awakened and I've been given another morning, there's another opportunity. And because there's another opportunity, then it is incumbent upon me to step into those opportunities, whatever they are. If I'm laying in a hospital bed and I'm hearing the doctor give me a poor prognosis, if I'm able to still breathe and know that I have a desire to want to give more, there's still some things I want to do. I believe that there's hope in that. I believe that gives us the encouragement to go through the radiation, to go through the chemotherapy, to go through whatever we have to face. When I have to bury a loved one and sadly say earthly goodbyes to people I love, I have to, many times for me, and I encourage others to do this when they're grieving and mourning, grieve well, mourn well, grieve well, mourn well. But in the midst of your grief, in the midst of your mourning, know that the person that you're honoring really has never left you. That their love, their encouragement, and that which they've imparted in us resides here. And let that be a catalyst. Let that be a motivation of hope that gets us out of the bed of depression, that moves us out of isolating ourselves, and we begin to pull the blinds up, and we begin to respond to that which is around us, the stimuli of walking down the street and saying good morning to somebody, or having someone say good morning to us, and we not merely just walk past them, but we respond to that good morning. What are we saying? It's another day. It's another opportunity we have. Let's take advantage of the moment we have right now, and let's move from a place of despair to a place possibly that it looks better than where we've been or where we are. So we
I
step
love that.
forward. Yeah.
I love that. It is a different lens on life. It's almost the only thing I can think of, Bishop, that you can wrap yourself in that is in the moment, but not of it.
That's it.
That is, if we are in a bubble of hope, and I don't mean a bubble that keeps you in, but if we surround ourselves with this feeling of hope, our failures are yesterday, our fears are tomorrow, but hope is in this moment,
Yes.
in the now. How do you explain that to someone who has, so many times you have to get through it to be able to do it? How do you explain that to someone who may have never been through it all the way?
Yeah.
That there is truly not that train coming down the track always.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, we just saw a study come out that during the most recent past year, overdoses, highest ever, suicides are up. People are hurting.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I'm familiar with that study, and I must tell you that I tend to be, I won't say an optimist. Some would label this approach as being so optimistic, and I don't think it's merely optimism. I'm a little bit more direct when it comes to sharing with people. Some people, I literally almost have to shake them and say, look, giving up is not an option. I know you think it is, but it really is not an option for you, because the reality is that all of us have a purpose. There's a purpose, there's a plan, there's that which many times we may not know the totality of what that purpose is and what that plan is for our lives, but there is a need for us to stay on the trajectory of seeking that out, seeking out that purpose. And so there's this, oftentimes, I think for me, a tendency when I'm talking to, whether it's parishioners or people in the community or my family members, I get a little bit bold. I shake them up a little bit and I say, you're not going to give up. And sometimes they have to hear that from outside of the voices that are speaking into their own hearts and mind, the negativity, the emotional stress, and the things that come about from all the things that, again, all of us are facing. There has to be a counter voice, a counter narrative that says there's light, there's direction, there is, even in the midst of the pain and the sadness and the discouragement, joy will come.
And if you are alone hearing this, and you don't have people around you,
absolutely,
you be that voice. Say it out loud yourself and hear yourself say it. Yes,
Rob. You're hitting it right on the head. We have to, people say, I tell them, I talk to myself. They said, you talk to yourself? You must talk to yourself because you're going crazy. I said, no. I talk to myself to keep from going crazy in life.
Me too.
Yeah, I talk to myself. I tell my own self, everything's going to be all right. I tell my own self that this is the best day of my life. And for me, it is not just positive affirmations. It is a deeply rooted confidence that at times, yes, it takes time to develop that, but you start somewhere. Oftentimes I will spend time in my lone period, not loneliness, but in a lone period. I spend that time really talking to myself, the narratives of life. I realize I speak out the fact that I'm here on purpose, for purpose, with purpose, that I'm not an accident, I'm not a mistake. Despite what all has taken place in my life, as I mentioned, the trauma of coming from a divorced family, but not labeling myself and staying in that place of that, well, I come from a divorced family. I was told that I was going to be the least likely to achieve in high school. And my grades were
that. You were told that?
I was told that because my grades were so low, my self-esteem was so low, and I didn't see my first A until I was in high school, and I was a senior in high school to be exact. But the point was that there was several people, a handful, maybe about 2 or 3 people that said, young Lovelace, you're going to be somebody. That there's a purpose for you. There's a plan for you. Now, I attached onto that. I connected to the hope that they saw in me. There wasn't a hope that I had for myself. They themselves had a hope for me, but later there became an internalization of what had been spoken over me. And as I internalized the right things, not the negativity, not the fact that you'll never be anyone, you come from a divorced family. I'd internalized that long enough. At some point I had to let all that go. But I began to internalize that somebody said, young Lovelace, you're gonna be something. You're gonna be somebody. And I began to say that. I began to say, I'm going to be someone. Now watch, I started out by saying, I hope to be somebody. More wishful thinking. But then that hope became confidence. And as that hope became confidence, then you begin to say, I am whole. I am strong. I have peace.
I just got it. I just got what you're talking about with hope.
Yeah.
Because at that young age, you could have clung to the negative voices.
Yes.
But someone said to you, young Lovelace, you are going to be somebody.
Yes.
And despite or in spite of everything that happened along the way,
yes,
that belief, that hope became fact.
Yes.
It didn't change loss. It didn't change grief or pain, but it changed you.
It changed me. It changed me. And see, that's where this idea of faith being that substance, that evidence, the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things that are not yet seen. Faith working with hope. Again, assurance, confidence. I just know that I know that I know. If my late mother was here, she would say, I just know in my knower.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I know in my knower. It cannot be explained just from human rationale. It is something, Rob, so deeply rooted within our very beings. And as we attach ourselves and embrace that, and more so allow that to embrace us, I believe that's where strength comes. I believe that's where joy comes. That's where peace comes. In the sacred scriptures, it actually speaks of this. It talks about now abideth faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these being love. I think it all works together. The more I have hope, the more my faith and confidence build. The more my faith and confidence build, I realize I am loved and I have the capacity to love. And all of that moves us, again, as stated earlier, from this place of selfishness to selflessness.
That's beautiful. What must be shared from you today in these closing moments? If you had to say something, a burning desire on your heart, what would it be?
We've been through the storm. We're going through the storm. We've been through the rain. We've been through some things that we would have never imagined having to face. And I'm not even talking just about the pandemic, although that's huge. All of us have been through some things that could have taken us out, could have destroyed us. And the fact that we are still here means that there is still a purpose and a plan to be fulfilled. And every day we wake up, if we can just believe that and receive that, not merely embrace it, but allow the truth of that to embrace us. There's something that's being rewritten within the story of our lives. There's something that at the end of the book, it looks much different than the opening chapter. So I would say to myself, I would say to you, Rob, I would say to everyone, hold on, don't let go. Help is on the way. Hope is that which will sustain us until we see another outcome. And even if things don't change, you change in it. That's what makes the difference.
And you know that in your knower.
I know it in my knower.
In your knower.
Things I know.
We're going to dedicate this show to your mama, because that was her quote. Thank you so much, Bishop Parnell Lovelace, with the wonderful Center of Praise in Sacramento that you founded and you created, and 32 plus years, correct?
That is correct. 32 years ago, started with 12 folks and was hoping that somebody would come to church.
Yeah, and there's that word again, hope. Yeah. Now you got 3,500 plus, as well as your online community. Thank you so much for joining us, Bishop Lovelace. It's great to see you as always. And again, thank you for filling us with hope today.